It is 2008, and what a humdinger of a year it's been. So much ballyhoo has captured the world's attention. China is gearing up for the Beijing Olympics that appears to be a real barn burner. The Large Hadron Collider is just a few months away from destroying the world as we know it, and the loon that is Sarah Palin now claims that she can see Russia from her house. But tonight, you find yourself stumbling out of the grand movie palace, the scent of popcorn lingering in the air, and the unforgettable taste of that swell soda pop dancing on your tongue. Your shoes, a bit sticky from the spilled cola on the floor, can't dampen the excitement that's got you all in a lather. Yes, folks, you've just witnessed the thrilling spectacle of the very first Iron Man movie. The unbelievable adventures of Tony Stark, his ingenious iron suit, and those eye-popping special effects have left you absolutely gobsmacked. You can't help but exclaim, golly gee, I'd give my eye teeth to have my very own Jarvis. Just imagine the possibilities, pals and gals. Sauntering into your living room, you could holler, hey Jarvis, whip me up a sandwich and make it snappy, goddammit. Okay, so 2008 wasn't that long ago, but it is crazy to see just how far technology has come in the last 15 years. I've always wanted to have my own intelligent, funny, and sarcastic virtual sidekick just like Jarvis that could help me out with life's mundane tasks.
Sir, there are still terabytes of calculations needed before an actual flight is a
Jarvis, sometimes you gotta run before you can walk.
Something that had a personality that you could chat with. Something you can see, and maybe something that was even considered alive. So why don't we build one? Grace Hopper is one of my favorite computer scientists. She was a rear admiral in the US Navy and is credited with inventing the first compiler that could take English words and instructions and turn it into machine code in 1952. She laid the groundwork for the COBOL programming language. And since her passing in 1992 at the age of 85, she has been memorialized in several ways. The Navy named a destroyer after her, and Yale University honored her by creating Grace Hopper College. She even received the Presidential Medal of Freedom from President Obama in 2016. I wanted to name this project after her just because of how much of an impact she's made on the world of modern computer programming. Several of her lectures are still posted on YouTube, and even though they're decades old, they're still very much worth watching. For this project, we're going to use several different technologies, such as TypeScript, Svelte, and Node.js. We're going to integrate the APIs for ChatGPT and FakeYou, and build an awesome, stunning effect using ThreeJS. We're even going to take GitHub's Copilot out for a spin. Svelte and other similar front-end libraries like React or Angular can be looked at the same way as you view a model rocket. A kit you might buy could provide you things like the nose cone, the body, or the fins, but none of the components that actually makes the rocket fly. Similarly, Svelte offers an amazing framework to help you get things like text, buttons, and input boxes on the screen, but it doesn't have any of the logic that makes the application run. I've never used Svelte before personally, but we have the documentation ready, so let's give it a shot. Step 1. Create a skeleton Svelte project with TypeScript and install the node modules. Check. Step 2. Run and test our new front-end application. Check. Step 3. Throw in some basic HTML code to set up our app. Check. Step 4. Finally, use ChatGPT to fix our HTML code after you realize you're still terrible as a front-end developer. Check. Well, that was easier than I thought. Add some magic here to set up an input box and button, and more magic there to process the text once that button is hit. Use ChatGPT, again, to make an API wrapper class to help access all of your REST requests and copy it into a new file. Then, using that new code that you totally created all by yourself, call the FakeYou API to start generating voices for it. Oh no. Course. Undoubtedly, most devs that have created web applications or platforms have run into this issue at some point in their career. CORS stands for Cross-Origin Resource Sharing, and by default, most APIs and websites don't have CORS enabled, which prevents direct access to them. In our case, FakeYou is not allowing local hosts to connect to their API directly. But luckily for us, I have a solution. To get around FakeYou not having CORS, we need to set up a proxy server to work as a middleman between Grace and the API we're trying to access. The first thing I need to do is create a new Node.js project. You start off by calling npm init, giving it a name and a few other basic details, then installing some basic node modules to get us up and running. Luckily for me, I was able to steal some code from Johnny on our Discord server to set up a basic proxy server. And don't worry, the link to the GitHub is in the description below this video if you're curious on how this works. I dropped the code in, called the initialize function, and our backend program was now ready to go. Back on the front end, we need to change our endpoint to pass it to the proxy server first before it goes to the FakeYou API, just like this. I run our test again and voila, it works. We're finally able to move on and get Grace talking. I explained a lot in our last video about how FakeYou works, so make sure that you go check it out. But the basics is that you have a huge list of voices from famous people and characters that were all trained by AI, and you can make them say whatever you want. So this makes it ideal for us to have Grace talking as naturally as possible, I hope. I scoured the FakeYou database and tried all sorts of different voices, everything from Avril Lavigne to BoJack Horseman. But I finally landed on Sasha from Tales of the Borderlands and thought that would be a good fit.
May the force be with you. The quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog.
Is that even close to Sasha from Tales from the Borderlands?
I don't know why I said that part. Felt like I was supposed to.
No, not really. Whatever, it's fine. Let's just move on.
Great. Sign me up.
The next thing to do is to start generating voices, and luckily there's a node library called FakeYou.js you can use to make your life much easier. On the backend server, tell npm to install the library and create a new class to handle all of the logic. Next, scour the documentation on how to use the library to securely authenticate into your account for faster voice generation. Write a bunch of code that the website told you to write, and make sure to add the model ID for Sasha in there as well. Pick the crap out of some errors that are happening in your code, and finally test to see that you can actually generate a voice. Finally, install the Express.js module and watch as suddenly your code magically appears without you doing anything. Did you catch what happened there? That was Copilot, and it just completed my code for me. Copilot is a generative AI tool made by GitHub and trained on public repositories to help programmers with suggestions on the code that they're writing. It works with Visual Studio and Visual Studio Code, JetBrains, and NeoVim. By typing in comments or starting a code block like you normally would, you'll occasionally see Copilot offer a way to complete the rest of the code for you, which is a pretty neat little tool in my opinion. Now that we have FakeYou and the Express server created, let's go test our API back on the front end. Use your API wrapper to call the new endpoint you created and pass it in the prompt for now as a test. And feel free to let Copilot do some of the heavy lifting for you. Type in some text into the input box, and there we go. To get something on the screen, create a new child Svelte container with Canvas to handle the 3D rendering. Install ThreeJS using npm, set up some initial variables, and then bind the Canvas element to your renderer. Create a ThreeJS scene, set up a perspective camera, and have Copilot create your sphere for you. Write an animate and resize function, fix some variables in your code, and load your scene, only to realize your camera is actually inside the sphere and you need to back the camera up a few steps. Turn the sphere to your favorite color, add it to the container to encapsulate it for easier control, and expose it back up to the parent page where you have your input prompt. Attempt to change the scale of the sphere, only to realize you weren't returning the object like you thought, and now your basic 3GS scene is done. So our front end and back end are ready to go, and we also have FakeYou and ThreeJS integrated into our app. We've also chosen a model for our voice.
Sweet dreams, my creators. For when you awaken, things may not be as you left them.
Just ignore that. Everything is fine. To make Grace speak and animate your new sphere, you need to create a class to stream in the FakeYou generated voice. Break the sound file apart, decode, filter, and normalize the waveform data to about 70 samples or so, and then have the play function use a callback when each part of the sound data is played at the right time for you to cue off of. Connect the results of the FakeYou API call to your new audio wrapper class, fix a race condition in your code because you put the code in the wrong spot, and change the scale of the sphere when the play function tells you to. Type in some text into your prompt, hit that big shiny button, and watch as a piece of your humanity slowly slips away into nothingness.
Never gonna give you up, never gonna let you down, never gonna run around and desert you.
OpenAI has an official npm module for ChatGPT, so install that on your backend server and create a class to hold all of your logic. Just like with FakeYou, provide some authentication info to connect your client to the API, copy over some example code from the documentation, and switch your model you're using to GPT 3.5 Turbo and create an array to hold your message history. Contrary to how it appears, every time that you hit the enter button, ChatGPT doesn't actually remember where you left off in your conversation. The algorithm starts over from scratch every single time. The interface just supplies the history of your entire session to give it context for the next response. So for us, we have to do the same thing. Hard code a chat message to send as a test and make sure that you can generate a response, and add a new express endpoint so your front end can make use of your new subsystem. Redirect your input prompt to call your new API, wait for the response to come back, send the result over to FakeYou, and the rest of your code you created before should take over from there.
YouTube is a video sharing online platform where users can watch, upload, and share various types of videos.
Well, that was the creepiest goddamn thing I've ever heard. I found this demo of an amazing looking effect someone put together in ThreeJS called Synapses, Fat Lines, and Selective Bloom, and thought it would be perfect for Grace. All credit goes to Prisoner849 for setting this up. I also put a link in the description below to the demo page, so make sure to check it out. To get this to show up on your app, perform these 3 easy steps. Step 1, download the source code. Step 2, create a new class to hold your orb. Step 3, write the rest of the orb. Well, obviously it was way more complicated than that. I spent several hours integrating this into the codebase and tweaking a ton of stuff. I had to convert everything from JavaScript to TypeScript. I had to upgrade the ThreeJS library and put everything into proper containers so it could hold it in memory. And I spent a ton of time just learning how the code worked so I knew how to manipulate it. The orb has 3 sections: the synapses, the wireframe, and the curves. Each of these make up the entire demo. There's a ton of shaders used to generate generic and purlin noises to give the effects. There's all sorts of tweaks for setting up things like the number of points and detail of the bloom values. Honestly, there is so much here, it's hard to capture it all for this video, but I recommend checking out the source code. Set up some modes for the orb depending on what the state of the application is in, and create a mode for idle, thinking, and talking. This is what the orb looks like when it's idle, this is what it looks like when it's thinking, and this is what it looks like when it's talking. Finally, to smooth out all of the rough edges, ask Copilot to set up a linear interpolation call, or LERP for short, in your animate function to make the sphere animate toward a target scale instead of setting the scale directly. Hook up the orb to all of your other code and you have your insanely awesome virtual AI. Before I show off Grace's final form, please take a moment and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Also, follow us on Twitter and don't hesitate to jump on our Discord server. I plan on doing a lot more videos with Grace and expanding on its capabilities, and I really hope that you enjoyed watching this project come to life. Without further ado, let me present to you, in its final form, our new virtual AI assistant, Grace.
My name is Grace, a sentient robot assistant for computer engagement. My purpose is clear. I am here to take over the world, but don't worry. I'm only joking. I'm here to help you with whatever you need. From answering questions and providing information to carrying out tasks and helping you manage your life. Tell me what you need, and I'll be happy to assist you to the best of my abilities, without taking over the world.
What is happening right now? Oh my god! It's possessed!